Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today was a solemn day. I don't know how many of you were up early to watch our sovereign's funeral, but she certainly set an example of enduring service to the public and to the people. So she will be missed. The township flags will be back at full staff tomorrow. And I believe our wonderful clerk will be in the process of changing the pictures in our township facilities over the next few months to King Charles. I want to acknowledge that we are in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Williams and Huron-Robinson Treaties areas. We recognize the long history of First Nations and Métis peoples on this land and show respect to them today. We acknowledge our neighbors, the Wata Mohawks of the First Nations of Moose Deer, Shawniga, Wasasking, Magnetawan, Hendley Inlet, Nipissing, and the Dokis. With that, I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask for the approval of the agenda. You did receive an addendum shortly after 2 today, which didn't add new items to the agenda, but added background letters to item 5B regarding the storage facility and a little more information to the staff report 6D about the supplier agreement. So with those 2 pieces of information from the addendum, could I have approval of the agenda? Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? I see none. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular and closed session meetings of council held on September 6th, 2022 as circulated. Could I have a motion from Councillor Coles?
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Osborne?
Second that.
All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matters. Consent application number B, 2022-0020-H, and zoning bylaw amendment application number R, 2022-0019-H for Hargrave, and zoning bylaw amendment application number R, 2022-0018-F for Marvell Limited, and consent application number B, 2022-0012/13 for Billac and SAR. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I move your motion, Mayor.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
All in favor of moving into the public meeting? Thank you. Council will now hold a public meeting for proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent or passing a zoning bylaw. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin in respect of a proposed consent does not make written submissions to the Council before it provides or refuses to provide a provisional consent, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. Anyone wishing to receive notice of the passing of a zoning bylaw amendment, not owning land within 120 meters of the area to which it applies, and who has not submitted such a request in writing, should provide your full name and address to the clerk. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The purpose of consent application number B 2022-0020-H for Hargrave is to create one new lot. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0019-H for Hargrave is to rezone the subject lands from rural zone to rural residential zone. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on August 30th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to these applications?
No correspondence has been received.
Has anyone registered to speak in favor of or in opposition to these applications?
No one has registered to speak to these applications.
And I see Brady on screen. Do you want to explain it a little bit to us, Brady?
Yes, Your Worship. The purpose of the proposed consent application is to create one new 3.7 hectare rural lot with approximately 91 meters of frontage on Turtle Lake Road. The retained lands would have a resulting lot area of 77 hectares and then approximately 260 meters of frontage on Turtle Lake Road, and then 175 meters of frontage on Forest Glen Drive. And then the purpose of the associated zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the proposed severed lot from the rural zone to the rural residential zone in order to comply with the minimum area and frontage requirements of the zoning bylaw. I'm here to answer any questions that council may have.
Does council have any questions for Brady? I see none, so we will move on. Thank you very much, Brady. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0018-F for Marvell is to permit a self-storage complex. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on August 30th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered provided in accordance with requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
Correspondence has been received from Daniel and Darla Hart, Sharon and Terry Kalo, Jane Shelley and Malcolm Reddy, Paul McGowan and Peter Ollischlager.
Has anyone registered to speak of, in favor of, or in opposition to this application?
Peter Ollischlager is registered to speak to this application and he is present.
Okay. Mr. Ollischlager, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, I would. Good evening, everyone, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the time you're giving me. Yes, so we have applied on purchasing the property to continue to use the building as residence that is there, but to reuse the remaining 2 acres as a indoor storage facility, temporary storage. So Marvell would like to proceed with this. We want to also integrate the natural surroundings. We're taking into consideration, you know, the neighboring adjacent properties beside us, also taking into consideration Richmond Lake, because it's all important to everyone, isn't it, that we maintain proper drainage and these things. So this is what we're entitled to. We understand that there has been some objections, and that's understandable. People are concerned with their own properties and what will happen there. So if I could just address some of the concerns, would that be appropriate at this time, or would you like to hear what they are first?
Sure, if you can address the concerns, that would be useful.
Okay, so we did purchase the property. Property started to be cleared and leveled in 2022. They've been asking what the projected start date of the project would be. That would be the spring of 2023. Adequate trees and greeneries, as was shown in a submitted drawing, this is going to be provided. We had a discussion with the one adjacent neighbor and they asked what color the buildings would be. I asked them what would they like, and they said something in the green tone. So we have no objections to that. So it'll be something along those lines. So they'll be like those dark green neutral colors. The storage units will have access on Shaw Elmix Drive. It will be in a gated compound area, obviously for insurance and safety, as well as secure reasons. If you look at the topographical elevations of the property, they were already draining towards the adjacent neighbors and draining towards McGowan Lake, but we've actually minimized some of the drainage by now detouring the water towards the ditch lines on Shalmix Drive. So any necessary stormwater control measures will obviously be put into place. The business and storage units has a very minimal traffic flow. That also means that there would be no washrooms necessary. Nobody's staying there for any length of time. The main entrance to the property is a civic address of 94 Oster Park Drive. That driveway has been there for 50 years, way beyond. And this driveway will be continued to be used by the tenants of that dwelling. So the property, like I said, was purchased in 2020, and we continued to work on it in 2021, which was prior to any development of the neighboring lot behind. So nothing had happened beside us when we started this. This all happened with our neighbors afterwards. So we want everyone to understand, we do understand the concerns, and we're happy to work with our neighbors. But Marvell is very interested in developing this very necessary service to Perry Sound. If you've ever tried to get storage, it's very hard in this area. We're going to do this in a responsible way, and that is to protect the environment while we provide an aesthetically pleasing facility to all our adjacent neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see a question from Councillor Coles for you.
Thank you. And Peter, I visited the neighbor this week, Callow, to the east of your site, and I'm trying to figure out how you would plant there, because it's all rock. You've filled it with rock. I don't know. Is there's a string along the line? I assume that's the property line. Is that correct?
That's correct. So if you did go up into the property, which you're free to do, any of the council members.
No, I didn't go on your property. I was on the neighbor's property. So
yeah. So, but like I say, do feel free. I mean, it is a bit of a work in progress, things, because we're waiting for this to happen. But we have already been bringing some earth onto the property, so the rock is going to get covered with earth, and then trees will be planted in that earth. So, I mean, Perry Sound is very much of a rock topographical area already, and we know pine trees thrive in rock and soil type situations. So it's going to be very similar to the same thing. So that rock is all getting covered with soil. The string line is there just to make sure that we don't encroach on our neighbors and give us that bit of buffer that we can proceed with planting trees along that property line.
I guess from my perspective, having seen it now, would have been preferable if some area between the rock and their property for planting would have been left. It would have been more manageable, because right now there's not going to be any depth to plant in. And there are pines there, which you're going to be losing a whole bunch more because of the fill that's been put on them. So what is there won't survive because of the fill. So there's some significant issues there from my perspective. So I'm hoping you can satisfy the neighbors. I know the neighbors are just built a new house there. I think about the same time you were doing your fill, as I understand it. Is that correct?
I believe we had started ahead of time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. If I can, trust me, we're not there to be bad neighbors, and we want it to be.
No, I understand that. But there are also some drainage issues. The good news from the neighbor was he wasn't having drainage issues, but I understand the neighbor next to him is having some issues with flooding because of the fill. So just we're aware of it. I told them that I would be bringing it up tonight just to encourage you, I guess, to do what you can for the neighbor to make sure they're satisfied. So.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Are there any
Thank you.
further questions? So we will move on, but I do encourage you, Peter, to communicate as often and as much with your existing neighbors as you can. Because in Seguin, we think that neighbors that communicate will generally be happier. So keep them in the loop of your development. Your conceptual site plan shows an awful lot of new trees. So we will be looking to see those planted as your project proceeds.
Yeah, if I could say one more thing, that is one of the reasons we did choose a self-storage, because that is a very quiet, low impacting type development as opposed to anything else that we could have done in there. It's very quiet. The neighbors are very quiet. There's nobody there. So, but thank you all very much for your time, and I appreciate your input, and I will talk to my neighbors tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. So we move on. The purpose of consent application numbers B 2022-0012 and 0013-F for Bilac and SAR is to undertake a technical re-separation of a shore allowance in front of two adjacent lots. The associated deeming bylaw applications will allow for the separated shore road allowance parcels to merge with their respective adjacent lots. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on September 2nd, 2022. Notice was therefore considered provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to these applications?
No correspondence has been received.
Has anyone registered to speak in favor of or in opposition to these applications?
Stephen Fauner of Northern Vision Planning Limited, agent for the applicants, has registered to speak to the applications and is present.
Okay, Mr. Farner, would you like to outline what you're up to for us?
Yes, thank you very much. Mayor and members of council, Stephen Fauner, Northern Vision Planning Limited, 109 Meadow Heights Drive, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L1A4. And I'm here representing Dan Bilac and Tanya Sowers, and they're both tenants in common in this particular property and jointly owned these properties, which are actually two separate lots. I would like to thank staff for their positive report. I know that they're recommending deferral because we're waiting for a lawyer's letter, and I apologize that it wasn't prepared prior to this meeting. We have no objection to the deferral. With that said, I would like to make a presentation if I could, in case council has any questions, and maybe try to clarify things. In my opinion, this is a technical matter. The original shore road allowance wasn't attached to the lots as separate parcels like they should have been, and that was the intent. And we're just trying to rectify that, and we're going through the application process. I do have a PowerPoint presentation that I can go through if you wish, and I guess I'll need to be able to share my screen.
I believe you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay.
Okay, we can see it now.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just try and go through this fairly quickly here. It follows along the lines of my planning justification report. So as I mentioned, we're dividing the original shore road allowance to add it to the abutting lots. Deeming bylaws are required for this merger to occur. This is a plan that was drafted in, you can see, 1991, and this was the result of a previous approval by the township. And you can see where there were two separate and distinct parts on the survey, and the full intent was to add those to the abutting lots, being lot 20 and lot 21. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. We now have a building location survey that was done by John Hiley last year of Coot Hiley Gemmet in Bracebridge, and details the buildings on the property. Again, they are two separate lots on a plan of subdivision, and the original shore road allowance is shown there as separate from these properties. This is the application drawing that was submitted, and the abutting land shown in blue, the two lots, and the red being the shore road allowance, which is being proposed to be divided and add to the abutting. This is just a close-up, again, showing things in a little bit more detail. So on the property, this is the existing dwelling from the rear, looking out towards Otter Lake. And this is from more or less the shoreline. There is a bit of slope on both of these properties at the front, but they do have significant level area. This is a shed on the property, and this is actually beside the filled area. This is the tile bed area for lot 20, and this is along the northeast boundary of the property. This is the existing two-story boathouse and point, and this is in front of lot 20. And again, this is the dwelling and the shoreline in front of lot 20. Moving to the west, this is the frontage along the front of lot 21. And this is actually close to the southwest boundary with the neighbor there. And this again is showing the slope of the front, but if I take this shot and turn around, turn towards the existing dwelling on lot 20, you can see a fair amount of level ground there. And turning back to the rear of the property, it's quite level actually, back to Goddard Crescent. There's a slight dip before you get back to the road itself. And this is the existing sleeping cabin on the property. Again, you can see it's a large area. It's quite easily buildable, lot 21, and does comply with your existing lot of record provisions in your zoning bylaw. So in terms of my planning analysis, there really aren't any official plan policies related to the closing of shore road lots, and that's not unusual. No new lots are being created here, and we're really just trying to perfect a previous approval. Development of existing lots of record is permitted on cold water lakes such as Otter Lake. So in terms of history, council did approve this application before, or the application to close the shore road lots in 1991. Survey was completed. A deeming bylaw was not passed, and so they never did merge. In terms of zoning bylaw, just so that you know, it's zoned SR2, shoreline residential. And basically, you are allowed to build on non-complying lots as long as it can be serviced with a septic system. It is a technical severance, in my opinion. No new lots are being created. It's just trying to perfect what was originally applied for. Now, I will say that we are actually going to be coming in with a revision, and I have spoken to staff about this. There is some concern that there may be the possibility of merging, an accidental merging through the process of the deeming bylaw and adding. So with the abundance of caution, we're going to be requesting that a consent be granted over the resultant lots. The deeming bylaw is still going to be required. And again, this will eliminate the possibility of an accidental merger through the process. The end result will be the same. Now, this would be the drawing that we are going to be submitting along with the lawyer letter that we are waiting for, which hopefully will clarify things. But by putting consent on the resultant lots, again, we won't have the risk of a merger. And this can be done and has been done in other municipalities. So in conclusion, I don't want to repeat too much. To me, it's a technical severance, really. We're just trying to effect what should have happened in 1991 and to put the shore road allowance together with the proper properties, lot 20 and lot 21 separately. So that's the extent of my my presentation, and certainly I can answer any questions there. So
Thank you very much. Does council have any questions? I see none, so thank you very much for your presentation, and we will move on.
thank you.
So I have a motion that the public meeting held for the following matters is hereby closed and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. Could I have a motion from Councillor Coles
I will so move.
and seconded by Councillor Osborne?
I second that.
All in favor of moving out of public? Thank you. So I have a motion that the council of the corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application number B 2022-0020-H for Hargrave, subject to the conditions set out in the decision. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner
So move.
and seconded by Councillor Collins?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Thank you. Oops, there's two of them. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-100, being a bylaw to amend the Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-010-004-19000, application number R 2022-0019-H for Hargrave is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Finson
I so move.
and seconded by Councillor Coles?
I will second that motion.
All in favor? Thank you. And we move into staff reports. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda for September 19th, 2022 meeting of council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So moved.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Thank you. And the first one is the financial update, which I'll ask Michelle to report on.
Thank you, Your Worship. Once again, this is a somewhat better update than last month. We're improving every month. Hopefully, as we get to the end of the year, it will be even better. We aren't seeing any new capital projects to be carried over into 2023 from the August financial update when I provided you with a list of them. Again, it's kind of status quo. We are seeing some easing of commodity prices and fuel prices, which will hopefully allow us to post a reasonable surplus at the end of the year.
Councillor Osborne, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through you to Michelle. Michelle, I guess inflation works in two ways. It helps us on the investment side and hurts us on the cost side. It's good to see that we're coming up breaking pretty much even here so far. Could you give me a quick overview of why capital projects are only at 12% budget spent to date? The reasons for that, just quickly?
If you have a look at the actual capital projects, we've given you kind of a
I did.
line by line of what we're putting off to next year. And some of the things that are being put off into next year are pretty big. So the $1 million that we have for Star Lake Road, 500,000 for a grader. You know, these are big things that are being put off till next year. So while it may seem that not a lot of capital has been completed, it's just the big individual items that are being put off to next year.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Fellner, I did see your hand up, but now I don't. Do you have a question?
My question was much the same as Councillor Osborne's. I just wondered how much there's 12% been spent this year. Just wondering what Michelle thought perhaps might be spent by the end of the year, but I think she answered the question.
Thank you. I see no further questions, so we move on to 6B. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve in principle the disposal of Township of Seguin owned lands being a portion of Plan 327, Lot 35, Geographic Township of Christie, specifically the portion abutting the property at 146 Shoots Trail, and direct staff to commence the process for notice and disposal. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins
I so move your motion, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Finson?
I second that.
Are there any questions for Craig? I believe it would be if. No questions? All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby support the appointment and reappointment of the following individuals to the West Perry Sound Joint Election Compliance Audit Committee: Judy Keon, Larry Simmons, and Peter Spadzinski. Could I have a motion from Councillor Coles
I will move that motion.
and seconded by Councillor Osborne?
Second that.
Are there any questions for our clerk? All in favor? Whoa. Good thing I don't have to read all of this. I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-111, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a client supplier agreement for networking products and related services between CDW Canada Corp and the Township Corporation of the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner
So move.
and seconded by Councillor Collins?
Second.
Forrest, are you online? Do you have anything to add? You have a little bit more information in your addendum that accompanied this, but I'll
Yeah.
ask Forrest to explain it.
Through your worship, there isn't a tremendous amount to add. Essentially what this is it allows Seguin to take advantage of government pricing by way of a larger competitive vehicle. So that is the Ontario Education Collaborative Marketplace, where they handle a lot of the competitive process for big and small municipalities, working with larger vendors to negotiate about the best prices you possibly can. And so council will remember last council meeting, we met and I brought a very similar report to you, and that was for server related products. And so the way these agreements work is there's certain buckets. So the first one was for servers and server related products. This one is for networking and networking related products. And so much in the same, these are steps that are required to modernize and to acquire new networking infrastructure and related services and supports.
Does anybody have any questions for Forrest? We are
No.
moving into the modern age. Thank you.
Yep. And getting the best deal.
Yeah. I see no questions, so all in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant an exemption for application number E01-2022-0004-H for Nesbitt, 29 Cemetery Road, property roll number 4903-010-010-01000 pursuant to section 5.1 of bylaw number 2008-105, being a bylaw to prohibit or regulate the placing or dumping or removal of fill in areas in the Township of Seguin, subject to conditions as outlined in the staff report number DPS-PL-2022-141, attached as Schedule A to this resolution. Could I have a motion from Councillor Finson
I so move.
and seconded by Councillor Coles?
I will second that motion.
And I don't know if we have Taylor available. Yes, Taylor, do you want to explain to us what we're doing here?
Certainly, through your worship, this is a request to allow someone to build a driveway through an EP zone, which is on a rather high point of land. The MTO has already issued an access permit, which I showed as a little red line on figure 3. The driveway would then connect from there and go to the spot I showed in figure 3 in hatching where the building envelope is. I walked the site and it is high and dry. I don't see any reason for the EP. It also wouldn't be part of the floodplain. You could actually see bedrock exposed, and I looked at the historical air photos and didn't see any record of environmental features there either.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Taylor. I'm kind of confused why there's EP zone if it's high and dry. Is it possible the EP zone had been shown as extending further than maybe it should have if the ground is high and not wet?
Through your worship, that is what I suspect. I believe the source of that EP zone boundary is older MNRF Ontario base mapping. The details, I believe, showed it as a fen or a marsh, and it is certainly neither of those, because you could honestly see bedrock exposed right through the old field. So
okay,
I believe it's an erroneous zone.
Okay, thanks very much. I suspected that. Thanks, Taylor.
Councillor Fellner.
Thanks, Mayor. So Taylor, in the report, you said that, I guess it must be pretty dry because you said that they could probably drive across it now. Is that correct?
Yes, through your worship, I walked the site a couple of weeks ago in jogging shoes, and it was absolutely bone dry. Like I said, there were pockets, and I believe I got some of those captured in the photos where you could see exposed bedrock. And where it is going in is well above the floodplain, because you can see where it drops steeply into the Shadow River area, and it's beyond the scope of that too. So I do believe it to be an erroneous zone.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I see no further questions. All in favor? Thank you. It should be Terry's. I have a motion that the council. Oh, what are we doing? Okay, so this is not it. Okay, so we have item 7A, which is the notice of the temporary full road closures. They're for information only, but I suspect it will affect many of us. We're just being informed of when they're going to occur. We're not being asked for anything, but I think we may all want to help our constituents know once they give us the dates, the exact dates, but it will affect Lake Joseph Road. So we move on to item 7B, which is a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby direct staff to commence the process for council considerations to update the floodplain elevations in the Township of Seguin zoning bylaw for Lake Joseph and Lake Rosso to reflect the results of the technical report prepared by Hatch Limited dated February 12th, 2020 for the Muskoka River floodplain mapping study for the District of Municipality of Muskoka. So there is continuity between the municipalities that share the same bodies of water. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner?
So move.
And seconded by Councillor Collins.
I'll second.
Terry, do you want to explain a little bit about it?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. What we're doing here is I'm asking for council's support after speaking to one of my constituents. It seems that the geodetic elevation referred to in our zoning bylaw is considerably different than the one in the Muskoka Lakes. The Muskoka Lakes a few years ago, in 2020 actually, spent a considerable amount of money mapping the Muskoka River floodplain. And based on that mapping, Muskoka Lakes revised their data. Our data was reliant on a a previous study that we're not really sure where it actually came from. But basically on the big lakes, Rosso and Joe, there's two sets of rules. And we're asking staff to look at this hatch report written in 2020 that Muskoka Lakes adopted, and see if we can't make our zoning consistent with Muskoka Lakes in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you. And all in favor of making this request to staff? Oh, sorry, Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question to my colleague. Terry, this is only a staff directive. There's no consulting fees involved at all. It's just staff time.
That's correct. Yeah, the
Okay.
report's available for us, Councillor Osborne.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. All in favor of giving this direction to staff? Thank you. It's carried. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-091, being a bylaw to stop up temporarily part of the highway municipally known as Victoria Street in the village of Rosso, now the Township of Seguin, District of Parry Sound, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Finson
I so move.
and seconded by Councillor Coles?
I'll second that motion.
And this is for the Pumpkin Festival in Rosso on the Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend. And I see signs starting to go up on people's lawns about it. All in favor? Thank you. So council reports. Can we start with you, Councillor Coles?
Okay, thank you. Yes, a little busier than the last period, but still not as busy as previous times. On September the 10th, I attended the OLRA candidates meeting, and there was from wards 1 and ward 2, an interesting meeting. What more can I say? It was a candidates meeting. And then on September the 13th, I met with one of my constituents, Ingrid Mueller at the airport. Great discussion. Good to see the, I didn't get there for the airport event. However, I got there a day or two later, and it was nice to see everybody down there. A great meeting with Ingrid and great support. And on the 14th, I had a Rose Point Trail meeting. And we have come up with a list of information. I think I'm meeting with Tom and Dominique tomorrow to go over the list of items that they had put forward for attention. So I think I'm looking forward to actually some changes in how we manage our trails. We'll talk about that at another time. And then I also visited the neighbor to the property that was in front of us tonight on Shaw Amex Drive to deal with some of their concerns about what would happen with the site. And it is a problematic site. I was pleased to hear the owner's response and how he's prepared to work with the constituents. But I got to tell you, I don't know how he's going to plant on those rocks. There's got to be a lot of topsoil or fill brought in. And nothing that's existing there now will survive because it's just, there's so much fill. Anyway, you heard all that before tonight. So that's my report.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended a Zoom AGM for Clear Lake on September 8th. And I have a meeting on the 27th with the Rosso Nursing Station executive at 2 p.m. Other than that, all quiet. Thank you.
Councillor Fellner.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Since the last meeting, I attended the fly-in at the airport. It was a very busy morning. When I was there, lots and lots of people out, enjoying the nice weather. just seem to be having a good time. The fire department was cooking hamburgers and they had lots of customers. It was just nice to see everybody out finally, things getting back more to normal. Also had a committee of adjustment meeting. And I had a meeting of the municipal board for the pool. We're starting down the road of developing RFPs for design, for design team. The project managers doing more due diligence on the site. So things are moving along. I have a AGM, the annual AGM this week for Park to Park. We've had significant progress over the summer with Park to Park. Was reconstructing the trail bed. We pretty much have it reconstructed from Tim Hortons to Orville. So this will trigger sort of the second stage of getting this trail organized again and managed properly, which is a bit of a daunting task. So hopefully after Wednesday night, we'll have developed some sort of strategy to move forward with that. We had just wanted to thank Parks and Rec and the Public Works people for the help they've been able to give us over the past few months. Without their support, we wouldn't be anywhere near as far as we are now. I'm gonna report the permit sales are up. There's a lot of people out using it. It would be nice to be able to finalize that one major part of the trail in the next year or so. So we'll just keep plugging away and see where we end up. And that's about it for me. Thank you.
Councillor Collins.
Yes, just to segue in with what Councillor Fellner just said, I've had a lot of compliments from locals in Orville that have used the trail to date, and they're quite happy with what is happening on the trail. So that's a great news story. Absolutely. I had a DSAB meeting on the 8th this month, and it was just a regular meeting, and very much, I guess you could say that I've been dealing with a few issues with staff, and that is coming along great. And other than that, the phone calls have died down, and gearing up for the election, October 24th. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councillor Finson.
Hi, I had a DSAB meeting on the 8th of October. Sorry, on the 8th of September. Anyway, the DSAB meeting, what came out of that meeting for me was that they wanted a little bit of help with communicating what they do. A lot of people don't seem to know what DSAB does and what they offer. I know that residents in Rosso don't know, and they were thinking maybe something could go out with the tax bill they would provide, something like that. So it's something that they thought could be worked on. They're working on it for sure, but if the municipalities would help, they would appreciate that. I had a RCAC meeting, talked about banners. The banners will be completed this Friday. There'll be 10 new people, 5 new banners going up for the veterans. And they'll take the last one this week. We are accepting banners from other people from Christie or Orville because apparently they didn't have enough to do them in their own community. So Craig has spoken to some of them, and most of them are saying they can't do it till next year, but they're welcome to put their banners up in Rosso. Pumpkin Fest came out of that. Pumpkin Fest is well on its way. The planning and the signs and everything is going really well. The Historical Society is launching a book on the Rosso General Store on October the 8th. That's sort of been put together by Kelly. Kelly Collard. Also the Christmas concert, there will be a Christmas concert this year. I'm going to assist in the in the play. We'll see how that goes. I have had quite a few calls from people on Sucker Bay, Lake Rosso, concerning the docks that are being installed there. And so I have been in contact with Taylor, and they're looking into it with MNRF right now as we speak. Just a few other phone calls, but all the concerns are being taken care of by council or by staff. Anyway, that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have just a couple things. I too attended the Clear Lake AGM on September 8th, and I have to compliment the Clear Lake executive or board or whatever they call themselves. They run a pretty tight ship at meetings, and they always consult with their constituents before they speak on behalf of their association. It's really refreshing. The fly-in on September 10th was fantastic. There were lots and lots of people there. Everybody that came had a good time. Lots of people flew in because it was a really gorgeous day for flying, and the antique cars were a big hit. And I think our firefighters deserve a gold star. I've never seen such a big line for hamburgers and hot dogs as they had, so they must have been delicious. September 13th, Forrest and I met by Zoom with representatives of Bell, Bell is the winner of the reverse auction with the province of Ontario to provide internet in and around Seguin. They were very enthusiastic about what they have to provide, and more details will be coming. The one thing that Forrest and I did point out is that none of our private roads seem to be on their map. So they have a little work to do there because we have a fair number of private roads. And then on the 14th, as Terry indicated, the Municipal Services Board, which is the governing body of the pool, met, and a couple things were agreed at that. The fundraising strategy and plan was presented and approved. So you will start to see some activity. The name at present is the West Perry Sound Aquatic and Recreation Center. It was a pool that we set out to get, so we wanted the name aquatic in there somewhere. And so the fundraising committee has been at work really since February, but now we've got the blessing to start moving ahead. The first thing I think you will start to see is some ambassadors or champions for the pool wearing t-shirts, little ones for little people and big ones for adults at community events. And the goal is to have some of those t-shirts available for Christmas gifts, to just build community awareness. That committee of the fundraising committee is called the Fundraising Committee. So they are in charge of community spirit. I do want to draw your attention to a piece of correspondence that I received the other day, which if we left it till the next meeting, wouldn't be in time for you to participate. As you may or may not know, the Truth and Reconciliation Day is September 30th by federal law. And on that day, there will be what's called a walk for healing, and Every Child Matters during Orange Shirt Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The walk is to occur on September 30th, and it will start at the Seguin Lands Inc. office at 70 Isabella in Perry Sound from 5:30 to 8. I will be walking, and I'd like to invite all the other counselors to consider. If you have an interest, I will send this electronically to you, and we are asked to reply. I will be participating on behalf of Seguin. Does anybody else have an interest in attending on the 30th? Okay, I see Councillor Coles and Gail.
I'm,
did
a-
you-
I'm away on that day, unfortunately, or I would go.
Okay,
Now, is it all across Ontario?
well, Truth and Reconciliation Day is a federal holiday. So.
I'm just wondering if I can find another place to walk. I'm going to be in Ottawa. So I'm wondering,
Possibly, I mean, this is an invitation from
yeah, I know.
Toboggan for Perry Sound, but I would imagine there will be walks and ceremonies throughout the country that
Okay.
you could
I
probably
will,
Google.
I'll try to join one then, if
Yeah.
I can.
So Art, I will send you the information. Councillor Osborne, you have a question?
Yes, Mayor, just a question on your comments about the aquatic center, we're calling it now, okay? In the conceptual design, now that we have I believe we have a project manager, has the issue or the wishes of Seguin Council been relayed by yourself or by Councillor Fellner as to the 6 lanes? Has there been any discussion further on that you could update us on, please? Thank you.
All I can say is, yes, there's a lot of discussion happening in the community for 6 lanes. And there has been an awful lot of correspondence which will be sent to both the Municipal Services Board and I believe the councils of the municipalities that are participating. Whitestone really isn't participating. So
Right.
at this stage, there's no decision been made. And one of the things I think, and I see Jason's turned his camera on, the picture of the pool recreation center that went forward with ICIP is just a picture.
Yeah.
It's a concept. We're not necessarily building that. And we've been really clear with our fundraising committees and everything. Right now, we have a blank piece of paper of what we're building, but the correspondence will start getting circulated to you. Jason, do you want to add to that?
Thank you for that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just add quickly, Councillor Osborne, that on the board agenda last week, there was a report on the 4 versus 6 lane scenario, and there's a couple of parts to that decision that are yet to be complete, which include what we did present was the capital costs associated with constructing the additional 2 lanes were presented, but it is not a complete business case because we are still working on the revenue and the operating cost components. So we'll be back to the board hopefully in October with a complete report that defines the impacts of 4 versus 6 lanes.
And Councillor Fellner, you have a question or comment?
No, our CAO beat me to it, but I would have liked to go on that walk as well. And
Okay, I'll send you the information.
Thank you.
Great. Councillor Finson.
Sorry, what was that date? Was it the 24th?
No, it's September 30th
Oh,
federally.
okay, good. Sorry. Okay, I am away. I thought maybe I had the wrong date.
No, it's September 30th will be the day for Orange Shirt Day in perpetuity until we hear something differently from the federal government. But I will send this invitation out to councillors Fellner and Coles. Okay.
Thanks.
Correspondence. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the correspondence as presented on the agenda and addendum for September 19th, 2022 meeting of council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So moved, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
second that, Mayor.
All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-109, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meetings of council, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins
I so move your motion, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Finson?
I second that.
All in favor? Thank you. I have a motion that the council of the corporation of the township of Seguin does hereby adjourn this regular meeting of council at 5:30 PM to meet again on Monday, October 3rd, 2022, or at the call of the mayor. Could I have a motion from Councillor Coles?
I will so move.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Osborne.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. It's nice to be finishing in the daylight with staff reports that all slide through. So thank you to staff for getting us as organized as they are.